Welcome back to the BDTV Breakfast Show. Now you are on to the social listening segment here on the show where we analyze top trends making the rounds across social media. Of course, my name is Elizabeth Musa and I'm not here alone.
I am Onyeka Valentine.
Thank you for joining us today. So let's start off the conversation today with the conversation on social media, where the Lagos state government has declared a zero tolerance for all forms of environmental infractions before, during, and after the Salah, which is the Eid el-Kabir celebrations in the state. Now, the Commissioner for the Environment and Water Resources, Tokunbo Wahab, read the Riot Act on Tuesday during a media briefing on the state of the Lagos Environment World Environmental Day celebrations and the Salah clampdown on environmental offenders held at Alausa, Ikeja. Wahab warned residents to shun acts of indiscipline, unhygienic behavior, as there would be no sacred cows in the enforcement. I like that. Sacred cows. So we'll see some of the reactions on social media. They will come have the conversation here in the studio. You know, the social media space has been abuzz with so many reactions. You know, there have been different conversations about the fine here and there. I don't know if you've noticed, since last week there's been a fine for this, a fine if you accept bribes, a fine if you do this. At this point, I'm even scared if there's going to be a fine for speaking. Maybe I shouldn't speak.
We're in the fine age, the age of fine.
Yeah, there's fines here and there, and it's a little bit scary.
One of the ways to not just generate income internally, right? Obviously, you realize that it's not just that way. You can also generate income through making sure that the people who are supposed to collect the money, if at all, right, are doing what they need to do. And if they're not, they too will pay fine. But what I'm trying to say is, fines. Is it because we have celebration coming up in around the corner? Back to the main story. You're hearing that, okay, look, if you defaulter, some money will be taken out of your pocket. The question is, will this money be accounted for? We've heard this over and over again, right? We don't begin to sound like a broken record, but accountability is key. We understand if measures are put in place, so that way there is some form of penalty. We get it. It's a great way to go. But it becomes better if that enforcement cuts across board. Okay. There are no sacred cows. There should be no sacred cow. What is good for the goose, like they say,
it's good for the gander.
Will this actually apply in this case? So it begs the question, Elizabeth, if truly they mean this thing they're saying, we want to see on that day, right, people who quote and unquote like to drive with convoy and everything, if they decide to default it to, let someone who doesn't have is not armed with a gun or something, but is a personnel of that agency stop you and say, sorry sir, Oga, we respect you. We know that you are a big man, but you have defaulted.
Defaulted by throwing waste.
Exactly.
But you know what's funny? If you are speaking about them littering the environment, I think you might not really see that if you're talking about the people in convoys.
It will shock you. I have been in traffic where someone wound down and threw a plastic bottle through the window. And I looked at the number plate. In fact, I caught a picture of it. Unfortunately, I don't have that phone with me. I could have put it up so we see it. I took a snapshot of the plate number, and it said, clear. It says, presidency. I know it's not the president in the vehicle. Yes. Maybe one of the vehicles that they use within Abuja or something, but the number plate carried presidency. So I'm like, wait a minute. Aren't you supposed to show good example, right? Like I did say, I know it's not the president in the vehiel, I know Obviously. That. But one of the people who, maybe one of the motorcade or something, and this happened in Abuja, I just threw the plastic bottle outside the window. Now, if I was a school student and I go to school every day and they tell me, keep your environment clean, do the right thing, you're the leaders of tomorrow. And I see one of my leaders throwing, I'm like, What is this? You know? So what I'm trying to say is there shouldn't be any sacred cow, even at every level. Good examples should be shown from the top.
Yeah, and I think that's what
You know.
the minister said. He made mention of that himself, saying that there will be no sacred cows, and we truly hope that there will be no sacred cows. And I think most importantly for me, it's being able to enforce regulations. Should I call it regulations? Enforce things like this beyond that thing, because we do have a littering problem in Nigeria.
Oh,
most especially Lagos.
Horrible.
You know, waste everywhere. You go to other countries, it's almost like it's a no-brainer. And I'm going to speak. I like to speak about African countries. In countries like Rwanda, you do not. There's no.
The laws are
waste.
stiff.
There is no single waste. I remember at some point we were on a tour, and then we were wondering how to litter, and then the tour guide inside the bus had said to us that we should just pack everything up inside the vehicles. There is already a waste bin, and it's not a case of, you know how even in the Nigerian buses where there is it's even dirty, so you feel like you want to even dirty it.
And so what does that do to you mentally?
The way everywhere is clean, you feel like even things that are perishable, you don't even want them.
Elizabeth, I will tell you,
to get on the ground.
This thing is a mindset. Here in Nigeria, we know the right things to do.
I'm not sure we do.
See, I will tell you. The reason why I'm telling you this is this: that look, if you put an average Nigerian in an environment where things are going well, they will conform, they will follow through. But for one reason or the other, I don't even know what it is. As soon as they step their foot back in the country, Murtala Airport, they begin to act funny.
There is something in the air. Like you step in and it's
as if
there's an aggression.
Everything goes, which is wrong.
There's an aggression. There is everything goes energy that just
which is
comes.
wrong.
Once you hit, because from the lack of orderliness, you know, it gets to you as well. You're trying to claim your bags, all of those things. You just notice a dive, like you're coming from this level.
This is the shocker. This is the shocker. Now, the same people who will complain that, oh, look at the way the American system is. Look at how the UK system is. Things are going well. You know, the idea of good, want to call it good behavior, kind of. Things are going well. The same people will come back here, right? And instead of saying, wait a minute, let us correct it. They will add to it by trying so much to press down the country even more with their words and worse and their actions.
But let's see some of the reactions on social media about this conversation, because I see that we're really passionate about it. Let's see what people are saying on social media. Tam Gunubo says, it sounds like a great policy action for establishing good sanitation across the state. This sort of action-driving policy requires extensive and effective implementation framework. Now, the bane of administrative failures in the country has always been, I think you're talking about corruption, lack of effective implementation and all of that. Let's see if we can check out a few more reactions. But that particular one that says the bane of administrative failures in the country has always been corruption and lack of effective implementation mechanisms. Seeing more reactions on social media. Destiny Alaba says, yes, for this kind of offense, taking a fine is okay. But there are some offenses that no fine should be accepted. Examples are bribery, fraudulent activities,
not even a slap on the wrist.
For these mentioned offenses, accepting fines doesn't make sense at all, and it won't deter it. Let's see more reactions. Ogale says, traders should also be fined for selling in unauthorized places.
Now
all drains should be
there's a
covered.
comma to that one.
There are many open drains in Nigeria, but the government and the masses should take responsibility. That's from Ogale. Abraham says, now you are taking the right step to address the Lagos smelling issue. I mean, it's across board that they say Lagos smells, but it's not me that said it. It's people that said, let your work speak for you rather than get online trollers to defend what is so obvious. Everyone wins this way, and Lagos is better for it. That's from Abraham.
I think I would go with the second one, the one that says that they should also find people who as in the hawkers on the street that that add to this whole so-called littering and everything. I think in that particular regard, we should start on first and foremost look at the reason why they are there. Okay, is there a particular put it this way now, system that is not working properly? Now, the system I mean, are we cutting across information properly, such a way that they can be well situated in places where we don't have to sleep on the streets? Look, cost of living is already very expensive.
Absolutely.
The man who is driving in his vehicle, right, wants to get water instead of parking, getting out of traffic, parking and coming back to the same traffic. And so the question is, how are we going to make sure that this person can get his water apart from, put it this way, by not patronizing the person on the street? How do you even get the person who sells this thing not to even stay there? Is there some form of road network such a way that we will prevent it in the first place? Because, I mean, let's be honest, the man who sells, or the woman who sells bottled water and has it, being carried around from car to car, knows whoever buys it, there's a high tendency that when they're done drinking the bottled water, the plastic bottled water, whatever it is, they'll throw it through the window. And so if we say no more selling on the streets, no more whatever it is,
no more
hawking and everything, how are you going to maintain this? What are you going to put in place such a way that these people, right, will have other ways that they can carry out their businesses and it wouldn't cause environmental issues for us?
And I think it's also to address the issue of
That's what I'm saying. That's another thing. Because a lot of them live under the bridges.
That's literally my house. That's literally the next place I'm going to litter. So it's a trickle down effect, and then there are many layers to this conversation. So if we're truly going to address it, then they have to address all of the layers. That's like from hawking, like you mentioned,
totally,
homelessness on the streets. Look,
I saw a video where they were cracking down on people who were living under bridges. That was a good one, right? Because most of them have no business being in Lagos. No offense, but hey, if the lifestyle of Lagos is not for you, go back to your village and go and do other things. There are other things to do there now. And so they're just moving into Lagos, trooping into Lagos, without, ask them, do you have any family friend in Lagos? No, I don't have any family friend. What are you doing in Lagos? I just came to see what? I'm not saying they shouldn't come to Lagos, so I'm only just saying.
Are you gatekeeping Lagos?
Well, I'm not gatekeeping, but I'm saying, look, so should I be like Trump now? That will say we want the best people?
It's like you're gatekeeping Lagos. Well, let's move on to the other conversation where the senior special assistant to the president on public affairs, Aliyu Aldu, says Nigeria's path from underdevelopment to economic prosperity requires time, long-term vision, and shared responsibility. And he also called for patience from the citizens. Now, he said this on Channels Television on Monday, where he argued that Nigeria, while being a unique country, can accelerate development if citizens and leaders commit to difficult but necessary reforms. While he reflected on the country's political journey, he acknowledged past failings but called for unity. Let's see some of the reactions on social media. I see you are itching to say a lot to this conversation. I hope that we'll have time to speak. But there are conversations like this, they always lead to much reactions. Olamilekon says, you guys are frauds. You are worse than the Yahoo boys the EFCC are chasing around. You promised to turn things around in 2 years. Now you're asking Nigerians to wait for 50 years. And you're mentioning that, of course, it took India 50 years. Let's see more reactions on social media. Sheyi says, APC, I like that handle, 3 left thumbs, says APC has been in power for 10 years. Does he want to look at a graph of economic development and mass prosperity in Nigeria over that period so it can help him to project what we can expect over the next 10 if guys are still in power? That's a big question. Now, Obong Ikana says, Singapore had vision, discipline, and zero tolerance for corruption. India had a clear democratic trajectory despite its challenges. Nigeria has had 60+ years, trillions earned, and still no power, no functional healthcare, no security, no accountability. That's the big
Elizabeth,
one
it boils down to one thing. Do you have another message?
Yeah, there's one more. Samuel says, so, in essence, we are telling Nigerians to wait for 50 years before Nigeria will get better, that Tinubu cannot do anything. Well, we need a leader who will start leading Nigeria towards prosperity. And that person, obviously, is not Tinubu. That's according to the words of Samuel Chijoke.
Well, as soon as you have, so if you have Nigerian passport, you're Nigerian, right? My question is this. I think it has gotten to the point where we should understand, right, that talking only does a bandage around the wound. Action itself is what makes that wound get healed. Otherwise, it gets infected and the host body dies afterwards. What do I mean by this? I will explain. Look, we have a wound. There's a gaping wound, open, flies have been perching on it. What is a gaping wound? Right? Is lack of confidence. There is lack of confidence in our leaders.
Nigerians lacking confidence.
Nigerians lack, exactly. So what I mean to say, when I say lack of confidence, look, it is a very clear thing. If I do not have confidence in you, I will want to look somewhere else for strength. And so you see messages like that on X. Like the guy who said, look, what was the second one again? He said,
one of the, like, if you could just have the tweet up on the screen. What did he say?
He said something about that it would take Nigeria another 50 years. Isn't it so? Look, let's be honest. Why are we looking to India? If it took India 100 years, that is India. Nigeria is a unique country, right? And because I know that it is possible that we can get it done, let us begin to look inwards. We are already bleeding. Let us begin to say, what will we do, right, to tackle the cause of the accident and not just come to patch it and put a bandage over it? And so we'll call a spade a spade. The problem we have is the big issue of corruption. And that is what's holding us hostage.
Corruption.
It's so bad that even at the least point, everybody wants to demand a kickback. And so, believe it or not, corruption is a greater killer than HIV and AIDS, a greater killer than cancer, a greater killer than even terrorism. It might shock you. Why? Because if you don't believe and have confidence, like I said, in the leaders and those who are supposed to be the proper gatekeepers in the judiciary, in the executive, all those other areas, and legislature, if you don't have confidence in them and you don't trust them, then why would you want to be patriotic?
Some people will actually beg to disagree on you saying that corruption is a greater killer and all of that, because there have been conversations. I saw a post someday and I laughed about it. I even made a joke about it on social media, where somebody says, when you begin to live certain life like this, you now begin to understand small corruption. I like how this is small corruption.
It's a mindset.
Because the truth is, I will be honest with you, the truth is, we say all of these things, yes. I'm not, you know where I stand, obviously, but I'm not encouraging corruption or whatnot. But I do understand why when people get to certain positions or get into, the people that even make, we've seen it happen over time in Nigeria.
They just change all of a sudden.
Where the people that were even championing for a cause. I don't want to mention any names where they were championing and then it got into certain places, and when you begin to see some stuff, you begin to
realize that
you begin to make excuses.
You can't escape it.
Yes, because the system, because it's the system that has to be changed. If there's no systemic change, one person can't do it.
So there is no nation on this planet that doesn't have corruption. I think what we should focus on is how to mitigate it. And so, if it is possible, at least Nigeria will breathe some fresh air. Because we're losing trillions and trillions and trillions, right, to corruption. There is no, like I said, no nation that is not riddled with corruption. But it shouldn't be so bad that our doctors will be leaving the country. So bad that our best brains will be leaving the country. And believe it or not, these guys who are abroad, they are telling us, come. Why? Because they know that there's some certain jobs over there that their own citizens won't want to do.
Yes, and those are the same jobs that in Nigeria our people won't do.
That's my point. So they go there because of the idea of better wage, the idea of greener pastures. Believe it or not, the same United States you are running to, they have beggars on the streets there too.
Absolutely.
It's a mindset. And the same Nigeria you are running away from has billionaires who hire these people as expatriates. And by the way, in case you don't know, most of the expatriates are not the best brains. They are the rejects over there. When they come here, because of the way they look or the way they sound, with some, documentation that you can't really, validate, you give them the post. And so guess what? They take that job and call well-meaning Nigerians and give it to them at a peanut price.
And you made a
and you say Nigeria is wasting time to grow,
right? Because we know how many of all of these people, sometimes when you have inside conversations about how some of them even have, I don't want to mention their nationality, how some of them even have the, what's it called? Is it that prison, that thing that they have around their leg?
Ankle.
Yes, their ankle. That many of them even have it, right? Because they are supposed to they're serving prison time.
And how they find their way
Nigeria.
So
and they're the ones holding the leadership positions in all of these factories, all of these places, and then they're the ones that people are saying yes sir to. And it's very, very, we have a terrible problem in Nigeria as well that encourages, and that's why I'm saying that this whole thing is a systemic issue, because we have a terrible problem in Nigeria, because then there's somebody that will be here. I think this even kind of mirrors something I was saying yesterday, a conversation I was having and I was even sharing, where you would now see that person that because he has a colored skin, I don't want to even mention, and then they come and then they put that person in this position, and then they put the other person that is your own Nigerian that has the qualifications and everything, and then suddenly, because that person has a white colored skin, you suddenly think that
call it spade a spade, call it the way it is.
My friend said something to me. There is something that is even going on in Nigeria now. I don't know if you're aware of it, but just before we go, there's something going on in Nigeria now where people are bidding for jobs, and when they are bidding for jobs,
they use foreigners.
It's a paid job now. So if I go and bleach and go and then become, come with my British accent,
you know what?
And then you take me to your meeting.
You know what?
You just need to say, oh, then this is Miss Chestnut from
We're going to have Dr. I don't know if you know him. He's a psychologist, right? He's big when it comes to Pan-Africanism. We'll have him on the show one day, and you understand the dynamics, the way most of these imperialists, how they think, how they have decided to say, let us, since we cannot get lands here, let us come in here, marry the women here, so our children will have land. And there's a long-term goal. Maybe in our next show, Big Story, we'll talk about it. We
definitely should have this conversation, because I imagine how just mentioning Muhammad is from Lebanon, and then that just gives you the contract, because and Muhammad will just come and just make some jargon. He say, yes, the construction job, then they just give you the deal. And that's why we have problems. We have bridges that are bad. This one, because the people that understand it were not the people that did the job.
Although, let's also make a bit of a flip side. Most Nigerians too, right, have done so much lying that it's difficult to trust Nigerians.
There is
so that part also is an issue too, because you see, if out of 10 you've gotten about 8 persons who you've dealt with in the country and are not as in the listing as honest with you, you have no choice but to turn to people who you believe
I think this
might
is
achieve it.
This is now
but
where,
again, it's
as
getting too much.
This is where, as individuals, in whatever it is, this is where we learn to do our due diligence. Because people don't do due diligence. They listen to what is said on the surface and move with it. No due diligence.
Line,
this is a story for another day. This was a really interesting conversation. That's where we bring it to wraps on the show's studio listening segment here on the BDTV Breakfast Show. Keep watching BDTV. My name is Elizabeth Musa.
And I am Onyeka Valentine.